All right, I'm gonna wait just a few more minutes and then we can start. Okay, it looks like we have a smaller group this time. If other people can join, I guess they... Wait, uh... Yeah, okay, if other people can join, then... I'm not sure. Give me a sec. Okay, wait, can everyone see my screen? Just type in the chat if you can or something. All right, cool. So here is so welcome to session 3 of the Logistem Linguistics Club, and we're just going to get right into it. So Okay. So our first problem is going to be a fake paper shelf maker. So I'll, in English, we can combine two nouns to get a compound noun, such as in mailbox or sandcastle. And we could do this in Japanese as well, but just sticking the two words together isn't enough. Instead, the words themselves undergo predictable changes. For example, as you can see here, like the the H in Hana becomes a B, the K in Kiri becomes a G, and the S in Sora becomes a Z. And those are the three changes that we see. Compound words can then be compounded again, creating compounds with three or more members. So if we study the diagram below, the order where we compound it affects both the meaning and the final form of the word. I'll give you guys like a minute or two just to look over this. If there's anything you like don't understand about the problem statement, just ask me through like the chat. And as you can see in like the bottom, for example, the H here is going to stay, while here it becomes a B and this one becomes a B as well. So right now we don't really have to worry about what specifically the letter changes to. We could just see that whenever it changes, it's just the first letter of the second word. And the exception was here, where this one stays. So we can guess that if the second word that we combine is a compound, then the first letter is going to stay the same. Does that make sense? So if this is fine, then we can move on to the actual problem. So the following is a list of several Japanese words with their English meanings. Use this word bank to write definitions of the Japanese compounds. Be very specific with how you phrase your definition. If your definition is ambiguous, it will not be counted. So as we can see here, so what we found before was if we have a simple word and a compound word, then then the first letter of the compound word is unaffected. And if we have two simple words or a compound, there's not enough space for this. So what we found before is if we combine something with a compound word, then this one will not change. Whereas if we combine something with a simple word, that's like it's just one word, it's not combined with anything else, then the first letter is going to change. So using this, what we can do is actually, well, okay, so I'm going, so I'll give you guys, since this is a pretty small group, I'll just give you guys like around 5 minutes and see if you can sort of create the same kind of tree diagram that you can see on the last slide. See if you can create this kind of diagram, and that's going to help a lot when you make the when you figure out what the word means. Does does do you have any questions about what I've said so far? So a place to start might be we can we a place to start might be trying to split up each compound word into a bunch of these smaller parts. So for example, in example A, we have Nise, which I don't know how to pronounce these, but it means fake. We have Tanuki, which means raccoon, and then Jiru, which matches Shiru, but with a letter modified. And this would probably be a very good first step. Okay, so the first thing we do is we just want to split each word into the different smaller words that basically make up that word. So, and I'll put like two underlines under something if it's modified. So just as an example, if we look at A, we have so we know that if we know that this word on the left, Nise, has to combine with a compound on the right. Otherwise, this first letter would be changed. So we know we have to combine these two first, and then combine it with the first word. And if we replace everything with its meaning in English, then Nise means fake. Tanuki means raccoon, and Shiru means soup. So if we and then we could just work from the bottom up. So for example, if we have raccoon soup here, we could just combine it on top, and the compound word would basically just be raccoon soup. So our definition would basically just be of like fake raccoon soup. Does that make sense? It, more specifically, if you had if you, I guess, like a fake version of soup made out of raccoons. So using this, is there any using this as a sort of example, we can see if we can figure out, let's say example D, which is probably the most similar. Oh, and feel free to message me if you have like an answer or a question or anything. So D as an example is very similar to A. So the smaller words that make up the compound word are iro, kami, and hako, which mean color, paper, and box. So we could just write this in. And we can use some similar logic, because if we have if you so basically what we want to figure out is which two words are going to combine first. Because whenever you combine two words first, then one of the letters is always going to change. And we realize that it has to be these two, because if we combine iro and kami first, then the K here is going to be changed, which makes it different from what we want to find. So this will become Kami Bako, which is what we want, because the H gets changed. And from here, this will combine. And because this is a compound word, similar to the example from before, the K is going to stay there. So now we can just replace everything with its meaning in English. And we have color, paper, box. So from this, what would be the meaning of kamibako, which is the word right here? Right. This would mean kamibako would refer to a paper box, or like a box that holds paper. So, and then once we add color to it, we know this big word just means a colored box that holds paper. And the rest of these examples are more or less the same. We can solve we could basically solve all of them by creating a tree diagram, and then because we know if we combine with a compound, then it doesn't change the letter, whereas if we don't, then it does. So give me 1 second. I am actually what? I should have just pasted the link in chat to the problem. So because we're running a bit low on time, I'm going to skip the rest of that section so we can move on to the problem F2. Still the same problem. We're just skipping this section because the rest is basically the same. So I'll give you a minute or so to read the problem and see if you can figure it out. So I will underline everything that's modified. Right, so let's work through the first one together. So all of these four translations, they all have the same four words in the compound word. Nise, which means fake. Kami, which means paper. Tana, which means shelf. And Sukuri, which means maker, hence the name of this problem. So if we look at this in English, then we can sort of do something similar to the tree diagram, but backwards. So if we have the words fake, paper, shelf, maker. Then in example 1, it's what is made of paper? Paper is describing the shelf maker. So it would combine with this word right here. And paper and the word fake is describing a paper made shelf maker. So that would be here. Does this make sense? So in this case, when we combine shelf and maker, then we know maker is going to be modified because it's the second word that's combined and it's a simple word. But after that, all of these are not going to change any letters because after it, all of the combinations, the second word is going to be a compound. So this means the word for maker should be the only one that's modified. And that matches up with B. And similarly, for example 2, we again have the words fake, paper, shelf, maker. So in this case, we would have the word maker is describing this whole thing. So we know maker is like the last word that gets combined. Now, out of these 3, fake, paper, shelf, we know that fake describes a shelf for paper. So the diagram would look something like this. And in this case, when we combine these two, this will be modified. When we combine these two, it'll stay unchanged. And when we combine it with maker, this will be modified as well. And this will match with D. Are there any questions about this? Okay, so again, I am not going to go over every single one of these. I will send the solution link in here as well at the end. So, but for now, the rest of these 3, 4, and 5 are basically done in the same way. But for now, we can move on to the problem after this. So here is our next problem, and this one is, I don't know if it's easier, but this one is, I feel like it is slightly easier than the last one. So Apinae, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this. It belongs to the Gi language family of Brazil, and it's spoken by less than 800 people. The following are some sentences in Apinae, along with their English translations. You will see some letters here that do not occur in the English or Portuguese writing systems, such as, for example, this weird E or the S. And you do not need to know how exactly these letters are pronounced in order to solve the problem. So don't worry about it. Just treat them as just treat all of these as separate words. So I will give everyone a couple minutes, see if you can solve well, not necessarily solve, since I haven't revealed the problem yet, but try to make some progress on what do some of these words mean, maybe how is the sentence structured, anything like that. Oh, and sorry. I just sent a link in the chat if anyone prefers to print out the problem and do it that way.
We did this last week.
Oh, Sorry, I wasn't. Okay. I have something else then. Okay. Give me 3 seconds. Okay. Okay, I just sent another link in chat. I don't think I. So can everyone see my screen? Uh, can everyone see my screen? It should display a problem called "This problem is pretty easy."
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I will give everyone a couple minutes to read through this problem. It is kind of long. Has everyone like read the problem? Basically, what the problem is saying is that there are some sentences they call them garden path sentences, where if you cut off the sentence at a certain point, then this then the part before that certain point will form a different sentence that means something totally different. Does that make sense? So for example, in number 1 here, the the different sentence is just don't bother coming, whereas the total sentence is don't bother coming early. If this makes sense, then we can move on to the problem itself. So problem 1 is just asking us to make sentences similar, like make garden path sentences similar to 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3 earlier. Oh, shit. Has anyone come up with any examples of like a garden path sentence with where the break is? Tian, just say it out loud or in the chat. You're muted. Oh. Okay, so good job on the first one. The first one works. I like to switch. Maybe it's not. There might be a better example because switch, for example, isn't a totally descriptive like adjective. So the second one, it the the break in the sentence, I think I probably should have explained this better, but the break in the sentence should be between two words, not like in the middle of a word. Does that make sense? Sorry. So for example, one example might be like Mr. Smith runs the business. Because the part before the line break is a totally grammatically correct sentence. It just means something totally different from the whole thing. Does anyone else have any example of a sentence that fits this criteria? So another example for instance could be, once I get this tablet working again. Like you wanted to change meaning. So another example could be, my car cannot turn upside down. The first one is probably a better example, but there are a lot of other sentences that work like this. Does this make sense? Do you guys have any questions? Okay, cool. So now for number 2, rank sentences 4, 5, and 6, which are shown earlier over here. Rank these sentences on basically how shocking would it be once the listener hears this second part. So which one do you think would basically surprise the listener the most? Uh 6, I would actually argue for 4, because 4, when I can understand 6, but for 4, this sentence over here is already, the reason is that this sentence is already very descriptive. Like it tells you more than just, for example, fat people eat. So I put 4 is the most shocking, then 6, and then 5. And two things is, for example, the biggest thing is when something changes like a function in a sentence. So for example, in 4, this whole part becomes the subject of the whole sentence. Does that make sense? All right. And then similarly for 6, this is a sentence, but it becomes the subject of the next part.